Hello everyone, welcome back to Dragonfly Engineering. So this week we've got another episode on the old vacuum tube radio, and my friend Bill, who's the main tech who is restoring this entire radio system, he did a lot of independent work and used his own camera, which is kind of a vintage camera in itself, and recorded some of his workings on restoring this radio. So the camera, you can hear that I think it's autofocus has a little mechanical problem because you hear this little chatter sound, and you know, it's a vintage camera, so I guess it's fitting that we use he used a vintage camera to document the restoration of this vintage radio. So I hope you enjoy the series of videos that he took, and the question is, did he get it working? So you're going to have to stay tuned to the next episode to see if this radio came back to life or not. But you know, you can see his setup here. He's got the speaker on the side and everything. So anyway, thanks for watching Dragonfly Engineering. And if you'd like to buy a t-shirt, you can go to the website and get your own, as well as mugs or other merch as well. Shameless plug, I guess, is there. All right, well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye.
These seem to go either of two ways. You remove the last screw and the whole thing just falls right off, or it gets stuck to the cabinet with the potential to damage the veneer or the finish as you pry it off. But this one is just coming off nice and easy. You can see here we'll have to bend some tabs back to release the lens from the escutcheon plate, and see if we can find some replacements for the rubber combing that's in here that isolates the lens from the mount. My general habit is to replace the screws to where they came from so they don't have to go looking for them afterwards. Other people prefer to put everything in marked baggies or old film canisters, showing my age. The important thing is just to be organized so that you don't end up wasting a lot of time looking for stuff that you set somewhere, or losing things that can't easily be replaced. And again, I'm taking care, these are wood screws that form their own threads into the wood as you screw them in. So I'm just carefully and gently returning them to the cabinet and making sure not to cross thread them or try to drill new threads into the wood, which strips everything out and makes them useless. Creates problems. Anyway, that's that. Turning to the back side of the cabinet now, we've got the wave magnet antenna and this lovely enormous speaker in here. Both of these attach to the back of the radio itself. I'm going to need to pull both of these out in order to get the grill cloth out of here. The antenna appears to be spring mounted on top with just this bracket holding it in from the bottom, but there's also a bare wire. I don't know if all the insulation fell off or it was originally bare, but it's running the periphery of the inside of the cabinet here. Probably part of the, I'm sure it's part of the antenna. So that's going to need to come off first, and then we'll see if we can remove this. But, let me do some futzing around in here, see if I can get this wire out of here. So the bare wire was just wrapped around a series of nails that are pounded into the frame running around the periphery here. Just making a loop or two around each of them to spread the antenna wire around. So that's loose. And now, let's see if I can get this wave magnet out of here. hold this supporting bracket up when I get this screw out of here. You can tell this is built to go together once, put together with wood screws, one-time use essentially. Gotta be careful about that. Okay, let's see if this will drop out of here like I think it will. Yes, okay, that's free. So yeah, this just pivots on this spring-loaded pin at the top. And I'm going to set this aside, and this looks like this is going to be a real entertaining project, opening this up to rewire it, because the wiring is just all, insulation's all crapped up and falling apart. So yeah, rewiring this without destroying it, it's going to be a fun challenge. Okay, next step will be to get this speaker out of here. Pretty straightforward, just 4 11/32 nuts holding this on. And again, because this is a big and heavy piece, that is also probably ridiculously easy to damage. I mean, it's basically just a pressed paper cone that's more than 80 years old. So there's a real good chance that it's rather dried out and brittle. So yeah, on the one hand, this is real easy and straightforward. On the other hand, real easy to screw up. And again, this could be reconed, at least in theory. I've had old speakers reconed, typically in radios that are quite old, and that there are no replacement parts available, and oddball sized speakers that you can't just go grab something from the car stereo department at Walmart and pop it in. So here again, hold this in place and support it until I get all the hardware off of here. And yeah, this is doing okay. Now I thought for a second that the end of the stud was rusted enough that I was just going to pull the stud out rather than have the nut come off. But it looks like that stayed there. So again, real important step here is just to pull this straight back and not catch it on anything. And there's that big old speaker. I am guessing there used to be a felt pad right in the middle. It's kind of typical. Maybe not. It looks like something was there once upon a time, but it's possibly disintegrated off somewhere in the distant past. But next step is to set this aside somewhere, keep it safe, and see what's involved with pulling that grill cloth out of there. Okay, next step is removing this board in here. You can see the grill cloth, back side of it right there. And this is held in with just some wood screws around the periphery, and it looks like there's a piece in the top here that this kind of slides in behind. It holds it at the top, and then the screws run around the periphery. But let's find out. It's held in with slotted screws using flat blade screwdriver to remove them. Here again, real important that you have a good clean tip on the screwdriver, because these slotted screws, if the screwdriver is the slightest bit dulled or damaged, the screwdriver wants to cam out of the slot and end up damaging the screw head, making it all the more difficult to remove. So today's lesson, use good screwdrivers. Yeah, without this enormous speaker in here, this cabinet is a lot less front heavy, but I'm still applying a little counter pressure to it just to keep it from walking off this table that I've got it on. Last thing I want to do after all this work is to have this cabinet fall over and get damaged. Okay, and again, since this appears to be retained at the top by a wooden slat, removing all the screws except the last two here at the bottom, and removing the screws from top to bottom so that now I can hold this up, support it. Oh yeah, just let that pop loose. And now with any luck, this will just drop out of here. But no luck today. Alright, looks like that slat is attached to this backing board and then screws run through the slat to the top here. So let me get the appropriate size driver. This one. Alright, that's looking a little more promising. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. That just drops out that way. And here is our speaker cloth seeing daylight for the first time. Now this is interesting. We thought this had gold speaker cloth, but you can see the areas that were protected from the light are actually kind of a nice mahogany walnut brown or something. So I'll talk to Dave and see what he wants to do, whether he likes the gold or if he wants to see if we can find something that matches the original color, and we'll go from there. Another surprise. So after a bit of very carefully bending these retaining tabs back, I was able to get the dial lens removed. It's filthy, it needed to be washed. And it had this rubber U-channel combing around the edges. It's completely petrified and just, you know, absolutely brittle now. So pretty sure I can find a replacement for that on McMaster car, and that'll be put back on when we go to reassemble this. This was originally a painted piece. The paint has gone off over the years and kind of just peeled off and rusting. So I think what I'm going to do with this is just chemically strip it, take it down to the bare metal. I thought briefly it would be a little less work just to try to sand this smooth and then reshoot it, but given that I don't know what kind of paint this is underneath and how compatible it would be with the paint I'm going to use to refinish this, safe is just to go ahead and strip it and then sand it down to bare metal, get a good finish surface for a primer coat, and then the finish coats. Okay, so I've got this escutcheon stripped. Took a few passes with some epoxy remover and a lot of scrubbing with some 4-0 steel wool, but it's finally nice and clean and ready for some primer and some paint. So that's next. While I wait for the primer to dry on the escutcheon, let me see if I can clean these parts up. We have on the left the on-off and volume knob, and on the right the dial for tuning. And I'm going to use a real high-tech and sophisticated system here. Clean them up with an old toothbrush and some Dawn dishwashing liquid. And once they're spiffed up, go ahead and hit them with some more of the beeswax and orange oil, which will revitalize that plastic and shine things up. Let's see how that goes. And after a bit of scrubbing, these are looking better. Go ahead and hit these now with some beeswax and orange oil, and maybe see if I can polish up that center on the knob. So the primer has been just very lightly hit with some 4-0 steel wool. I like to actually do it using water and a light dishwashing soap solution. It just makes helps clear off any paint that comes off with the steel wool, and it kind of lubricates the whole process. So the whole idea is just to get a really smooth primed undercoat for the top coat to stick to. And so now for some exciting spray paint footage. Along with the escutcheon, I went ahead and cleaned up and stripped the band selector knob. I initially thought it was like almost a rough cast brass piece. It had a really rough surface. Turns out it's actually quite smooth. Looks like it might have been chrome plated and then painted with like a transparent gold tint paint to make it look like it was polished brass. I could try to see if I could find something like that in the name of not wanting to spend crazy amounts of time and money on this, and also have it go with the escutcheon. I'm just going to give it the same finish as we did on the escutcheon. So after a good thorough cleaning and good solid treatment with some beeswax and orange oil, these pieces look a whole heck of a lot better. Almost difficult to photograph because of the depth of the darkness of the Bakelite. And they'll certainly last longer. The orange oil and beeswax kind of revitalize the plastic and replace oils that have evaporated off over the decades. So they'll look better, and they'll definitely look better, and they'll certainly last longer. Here we have the escutcheon and the band select wheel after they've been painted and clear coated, and just going to give those a few days to harden up before handling any, and we can start putting things back together.
Okay, today's video we're going to tackle the Zenith rotor wave magnet antenna. This is a framework with a bunch of wire wrapped around it on the inside. The only reason I'm wanting to open this up is the wiring to it is pretty badly rotted. Actually, there's one or two wires that are pretty badly rotted. Most of these wires have cloth insulation. It's a waxed cloth that actually has stood up pretty well over the years, but the rubber insulated wires are just completely rotted, and these land inside of this cardboard box that covers the antenna, and I'm not really sure what happens once they go inside. So the challenge is going to be to open up this 80-year-old cardboard box without destroying anything, so I can replace the at least the one rotted out wire here. There's also an antenna wire that breaks off right here that goes around the inside of the radio's case as well. So let me see if we can get this opened up without destroying it. What little information I've been able to find on the internet as far as opening these up and finding out what's inside is that these boxes are originally glued shut. This particular one, there's kind of a promising sign here. There's a piece of string that's been wrapped around it and tied. And it looks like it's been here for quite some time. And let's see if I'm, instead of trying to untie this knot, I'm going to desecrate this ancient string, cut it off here. And I have seen replacement covers for these for sale. They don't have the same really lovely graphics that the original does, probably because of some ancient copyright patent. So let me see if this will just open up here. So this looks promising. Looks like this might just feed out this way. Let me see if I can just kind of gently guide this wiring. This is a three-handed job here. Guide the wiring in while I pull this out of the box. There we go. Trying to be rather cautious with this, of course. I do want to put this back in. Again, the idea is to get this out of here without destroying the box. So there's wiring hanging up a little bit here. Oh, this is going to be entertaining. Turn this around so you can see what's going on. Again, just trying to tuck this through the opening here. Gently draw it through while giving birth to this antenna. As always, just take your time, step by step. Don't force anything. And now I have to disentangle this coiled up piece of wire that runs around the inside of the frame. There we go. Okay, let's do this without creating any more damage to this. So, the box is off with minimal trauma. Let's set this aside. Ooh, boy, I have all of the rotted insulation fragments that have shed off over the years. Okay, and this is what I'm looking for here. Here's my rotted wire going in, passes through the frame here and lands right here. So this should be pretty straightforward. I am just going to replace this one black rubber insulated wire because it is pretty badly rotted, and that should be pretty straightforward. And I can tuck this back in where it came from. So while we've got this open, you can see there's this array of antenna leads, some of them going around the box this way, some running around this way, around this inner framework. I know next to nothing about antenna design, but I can see that there are some very, very fine wires inside here as well. This looks like, yeah, there's a circular piece in here that has some super, super fine wire wound around it as well. So I am guessing that because this has all these different lead-in wires, since this is a multi-band radio, standard AM, broadcast range, and then shortwave broken up into a couple or three different bands on this as well, that as you switch bands, you switch the antennas because they're tuned to the frequencies that you're looking for. And that makes this a nice sophisticated piece. Again, I never cease to be impressed with Zenith's design and their technology for the time. So let me pause here and see what I can do to get this wire desoldered from here and cut a piece to the right length to replace. All in all, that wasn't too traumatic. Taking a closer look at this cable, comes from the radio. These again are the various antenna leads coming from the radio itself. This black wire that I want to replace, you can see this cable is bound together in a number of places with some really old cloth electrical tape. But what's interesting too is the black wire is knotted around. There's a cloth insulated wire with black ticking and another one with red ticking on it. And the black wire is knotted around it here by this piece of tape. Knotted around it here, this pair here also by this piece of tape. Now, this may be just a way of bundling everything together and keeping it nice and neat, but it also may be a way of creating some induction between these three, and that may be part of the antenna's design. And it's really hard for me to know because, again, I just do the mechanical end of this stuff. I've got a brother who's a real genius when it comes to electronics, and he's the one who got me started doing this. But yeah, I'm going to want to replicate not just the length of this black wire, but also this knotting around these other pairs, just in case. So little details. I know there is a place in the wiring in the radio itself where there are wires that are twisted around each other to create a capacitor of sorts. And so this may be, again, another feature, or it may just be a way of holding the cable together. Again, just going to do it the way it was done. Okay, so got this all squared away. What I ended up doing is replacing the one rotted out black wire. Here's a section of it. If you bend this, the insulation it's not quite falling off everywhere, but yeah, it's lost its flexibility here. So that's just a crumbly mess. So replace that, knotted the black wire around the black and red checked wires where the original one was, just in case. Wrapped it up with some vinyl-based electrical tape just to bind things together. I can guarantee you that is not going to last as long as that original cloth-based electrical tape. I'm sure I could find some of that somewhere, but just trying to get this done with what I have on hand for the time being. if you wanted to do the authentic reproduction or restoration, you would use the cloth tape. Replace the wire that runs around the periphery of the radio case. Cut a new section of 18 AWG insulated wire to the exact same length as the original, and we'll follow the original path for that. This is an impressive piece. It's made out of press board, and it looks like the wires are stuck in here with tar or something to keep them in their place. But there are basically 3 different antennas in here. One set of wires that runs this way around this case, this set that runs this way, and then there's a really squat, flat drum buried down inside here that has some really, really fine wire in it. And yeah, it's, again, my assumption is that these are essentially 3 different antennas tuned to the 3 different bands that this radio will actually, yeah, 3 or 4 bands. I have to look back at the dial here how it's broken out, but there's an AM and at least 2 FM or 2 shortwave bands on this, or 3. I'll figure it out as I go. Anyway, let me cut that out and do this again. Okay, got the wave magnet squared away. Ended up rebuilding this cable, replaced the one rubber insulated black wire that was on here, knotted it where it originally was to bind the black and red checkered wires together, just in case that's a functional feature of this cable. Replaced the bare wire section that goes around the periphery of the cabinet with a piece of insulated 18 AWG cut to the same length so that it'll have the same sensitivity or function. And yeah, this is ready to go back in the box. This is actually a really kind of a sophisticated little piece. As I mentioned before, it's essentially 3 different sets of antennas. There's the wire that runs around this inner case. This is made out of press board. So you've got this set that runs this way. You've got another set of wires, look like they're held in place with some tar, that run around the periphery this way. And then buried inside here is a squat drum of really, really fine wire that runs around the drum on the inside this way as well. And again, these form essentially 3 different antennas tuned to different frequency bands for the AM and shortwave bands that this radio picks up. And then the whole assembly sits in the case and can be rotated on this axis to, again, get the best reception depending on where your signal is coming from. So that's the wave magnet antenna. I'm going to go ahead and get this back in its box here, and I'll be ready to put that back in the radio. All right, and without boring you with the gruesome details of reinserting this, again, just carefully sliding everything back in, popping the cable through its little port here, and just being careful with this 80-year-old cardstock box. This is all back together. I don't know if I'm going to wrap this with string like it was before, but it would be a good idea just to hold this together somehow. Again, I believe these were glued together initially, or originally, in the name of making it easy, just in case we need to ever service this again. I don't think I'm going to do that, but maybe I'll find a piece of string. All right, that takes care of the wave magnet.